Today I'm going to show you how to make an album cover in Photoshop. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. And today's episode is going to be super cool, especially if you guys are a Sam Smith fan. We're going to be recreating one of his albums, taking some of the ideas, like using a background paint texture, then taking a portrait and combining that together. We're actually going to add a hat onto the portrait as well, and then using that over top of the paint texture to create a really cool abstract art that looks like a portrait as well. It's gonna be an awesome episode, you don't wanna miss it. So to start off, you're gonna need a couple of different things. You're gonna need a portrait, and to be super cool, you probably just wanna take a portrait of yourself, and you wanna be looking to the side so you can see all your facial features and things like that. You don't have to light it all fancy, because we're actually gonna be cutting it out and using it as a layer mask. Now, in this case, I couldn't find a really cool side portrait of someone wearing a hat, so I just found a separate image of a hat, and we're going to be putting that on our subject. And then you're going to want to find a really interesting background. In this case, it's a stock image also from Phlearn, and it's basically just a texture. Someone painted some blue and some black on a canvas and took a picture, which it's going to wind up looking really, really cool. All right, so the first thing we need to do, let's go ahead and start making some selections around our objects, because we need to bring everything together. So we're going to start with the hat because this is the easiest. So zooming into our hat, we're just going to use our magic wand tool. So let's hit W for the magic wand tool. There we go. And I'm just going to make a selection right outside of the hat. So we have a selection. We're just going to load it as a layer mask there. And basically, it's going to make that area visible. And we actually want the inverse. So I'm going to click on my layer mask. We're going to hit Control or Command I. There we go. So now we basically just have that hat on its own layer, which is perfect. That's all we want for right now. We're going to move on to our subject and use the same idea with our subject. So again, with our magic wand tool, we're going to click in this area, and I'm going to hold Shift a couple of times to actually increase my selection around our subject. So the background in this case is not the same color, so it is going to take a couple of clicks to get where we need to go. Okay, now that looks pretty good, but you are going to notice anytime you're using the magic wand tool and you have an area that has like hair and things like that, it's not going to do a really great job. So what we're going to do is we have our selection. We're going to hit this Refine Edge button right here. There we go. And now you can choose what kind of view you'd like if you want to see it on an overlay. Personally, I like black and white because it's pretty clear what we need. Okay, so you can see that doesn't really look that great, but I'm going to use my Refine Radius tool right here. All I have to do is basically just paint right here wherever it's a little bit kind of questionable, and it's going to do a really nice job separating out the hair from the background. All right, there we go. We're going to paint it over his lips. Anywhere where you're going to have hair, I would recommend painting. There we go. That looks pretty good too. And the hair on the top of his head. Okay, cool. That looks pretty good. Let's hit OK. And now we have a really nice and accurate selection. So with that selection, let's hit our layer mask button. There we go, he's layer mask, and the same thing with the hat, I'm going to hit Command I on the layer mask to invert that. All right, and we're looking pretty good. So now we're going to take our subject and the hat, and we're going to place them onto the background and then merge everything together so we can get a really cool layer mask that we're going to use to create the end effect. Okay, so here's our subject. Let's just grab our Move tool. We're going to hit Shift and click and drag from one layer to another, and you can see the mask remains, so it's just our subject on the background. We're going to do the same thing with our hat. Shift, click and drag, and there's our hat on there as well. Let's hit F to full screen this so we can just work on this document. Okay, now both of these, I actually want them to face the opposite direction. So I'm going to shift click both of those layers, right click here, hit Command T, right click, and then say flip horizontal. So it's going to flip them both that way. Okay, now we want to make sure our hat actually fits on our guy, because right now it's obviously not the right size. So we're going to bring our opacity down on the hat a little bit, and then we're going to hit Control or Command T and just kind of drag out from the corners. Now, if you have a picture of you and you're already wearing a hat, that's a lot better, I would say. In pretty much every case, you don't want to have to Photoshop a hat. But the Sam Smith A$AP Rocky album, he was wearing a hat. So I wanted to make sure that we did the same thing here. All right, there we go. That's pretty cool. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit too big. All right, yep, there we go. That looks good. Now, this is probably not 100% perfect, but it's pretty close. And because I found an image where the top of this guy's head was missing, it covers that up as well, which is an extra really nice bonus. Okay, now one slight area, let's go ahead and bring our opacity back up to 100. There's a little bit of hair up here that, that we need to take care of as well. So what we're gonna do, all right, we're just going to grab our lasso tool. I'm gonna make a selection right around there, and then here on the layer mask, for our man, we're gonna hit Shift Delete, fill that with black, which is gonna make it invisible on our layer mask. Okay, cool. I think that looks pretty good, actually. It's a good looking man with a hat on. All right, now we're ready to merge these layers together and create a layer mask that we're gonna use on our background layer. So we're ready to merge these layers together, and I always like having a duplicate just in case I need to go back. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold Shift and click on both of these layers and then click and drag them both down to the new layer icon. There we go. It's going to duplicate both of those layers. So we now have layer 1, layer 2, layer 1 copy, and layer 2 copy. All right. Now with these two layers selected, I'm going to hit Control or Command E, which is going to merge them back together again. So now on one layer, we have the man in the hat, and there's no layer mask at all. Okay. The reason I have these copies is, you know, if I need to go back to like erase part of the hat or move the hat or resize it or something like that, I'll have these and I can go back. I don't have to start over from scratch again. So we're going to go ahead and group these. All right, we're going to call these original. There we go. And then this is our subject. So we do need, this is what we are going to wind up needing because we're going to use it as a layer mask. All right, that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and bring our background in. So we have our subject on the background. Let's go ahead and crop the image. So we're creating an album, right? So it's got to be a 1:1 crop, a square crop. So we're gonna hit C for the crop tool. Up here in our ratio, we're gonna go right down here to where it says 1:1 square, and that looks pretty good. So let's just hit enter. Now I do recommend not having this delete crops pixels button. You don't want that checked. If you do have that checked, it's gonna delete all the stuff outside of this bounding box permanently, and you won't be able to move around the background. So make sure this is not checked. All right, let's go ahead and check that checkbox. There's a lot of checks going on, and we're looking good. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is actually get this person onto a layer as a layer mask. So we need to make it a selection first. Let's hold down the Control or the Command key, and that's gonna turn him into a selection. Now what I'm gonna do is duplicate our background layer. Okay, so we've got layer 0 copy, and now we're gonna click on our layer mask button, and now we've got a background copy with a layer mask. Okay, so the Sam Smith album, if you've seen it, it's basically just, you know, you can't see anyone's face. It's just an abstract cutout of someone's face with just a background. So that's what we're going for here as well. Let's go ahead and duplicate our background layer. This is our background texture here. We're gonna click and drag this down to the new layer icon. Now, we're gonna turn our subject into a selection by hitting Control or Command and clicking there on our subject. All right, now we're ready to make him invisible. We don't need him anymore. I just needed him for the outline. So we have our selection around what was our subject. I'm going to click on this layer now and click on the layer mask button, which is going to create a layer mask exactly where the selection was. So let's make this invisible so we can see what we have. Okay, so we're ready to start working. We've got everything we need to actually create these really cool effects. And now it's time to just kind of play around. The end goal here is to make it look like we've got a silhouette created out of these effects. So I'm going to try a couple of different things, and you guys on your own can try these ideas and get your own creative effects. All right, so here's our background. Now what we're going to do, I'm actually going to unlock my layer and the layer mask, and I'm going to flip this upside down. So we're going to hit Command T. I'm going to go right click, and I'm going to say flip horizontal. There we go. The reason I'm flipping it upside down, we're using the same texture here, but now you can see it actually stands out instead of just being completely blended in. There we go, it's standing out a little bit. Now it's time to start playing around with some blending modes and some colors. So on this layer, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna hit Control or Command I, which is gonna invert this layer. And again, you can stop at any point. We've got the basic idea down here. From here on out, it's just kind of playing around, to be honest. Now, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna change this layer blending mode from normal down to subtract, which just basically creates like an opposite version of here. Now, if you guys want to kind of flip through the blending modes in Photoshop, a really great tip is hit the V button, which will switch to your move tool, then hit the shift, hold down shift and click the plus and the minus key. And that's going to allow you to actually scroll through your blending modes. And this is what I did before this episode to kind of like figure out what I want. Like that actually looks pretty cool too. So you can kind of scroll through them to get your own idea of what you actually want. All right, we're going to change this back to subtract. There we go. Now I'm actually going to create a duplicate of this layer. So we're going to hit Control or Command J on that as well. And I'm going to inverse this layer mask. So this time we're not affecting just what's in our subject, but we're affecting the background instead. All right, so let's hit Command or Control I on that. All right, and then this guy we're actually going to change from our subtract to difference. All right, there we go. So you can see basically I can change each of these layers and get a completely different result depending on what I actually do. All right, so our next variation, we're gonna start repositioning some things and make sure all the colors blend in really, really well. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna shift click on both of these and we're gonna hit Control or Command T. We're gonna just make this a little bit bigger so the portrait takes up a little bit more of the image. All right, there we go. Now, depending on where I actually move all these layers, they're gonna interact differently with our subject. In this case, you know what, let's go ahead and make this a little bit larger. There we go. And moving this around, you can see over here we get one effect, and then over here we're going to get a completely different effect. So my goal is to basically create an image that looks very abstract in nature, but also we should be able to see our subject. Now, if you do decide to transform either one of these layers individually, you can see if I move them, the layer mask is going to move with the layer. So be sure to unlink the layer and the layer mask. That way you can move just the layer itself and the layer mask should stay put exactly where it is. And that way you can get the most out of the image, making it look like it is actually an inverse of what was before. Cool. I think that looks good. And then we're going to do the same thing with this one as well. Let's just scale it up a little bit. Oh, that's really cool. There we go. And we can kind of get that really nice effect. Again, I want to be able to see around my subject with this really cool art print. All right, that looks awesome. I think we're ready to start adding some text. So now we're going to jump in and place some type over top of the image, making it look a lot more like an actual album cover. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's go ahead and group everything together. We're going to shift click these layers. We're going to hit Command G and we'll just call these background. All right, now we'll take our portraits. We'll go ahead and group those together and we'll call these portrait. And let's create a new type layer. So we're going to hit T for the type tool and click right here in the middle and then really just put here whatever you want. If you're making an album cover, you can probably use your own name. I'm going to type in Phlearn. All right, there we go. And what we're going to do, let's go ahead and make sure this is centered. Now, I'm going to open up a new layer. So let's create a new layer. A really cool way to center anything in a document is to create a new layer and then fill it. In this case, we're just going to fill it. We can fill with any color, it really doesn't matter. We're going to hit OK on black. Okay, now let's go ahead and lower the opacity just a little bit so we can see through it. We're going to shift click on the layer as well as the type underneath it. Now we're selecting both of these. One of the layers is completely filled with black, meaning that it takes up all the image, the top, bottom, left, and the right. So if we center the Phlearn text on this black image, it's basically going to be the same thing as centering it on the photo itself. Okay. So now that they're selected, you hit the Move tool right up here, and then up at the top we're going to see Alignment tools. So if I were to hit the top, it would place Phlearn on the very top of the document. If I were to hit the left, it would put it on the top left. So we're going to place it on the middle, and then the middle here, and now we know that Phlearn is in the direct middle of our image, which is cool. And then you can just delete this layer, so you don't have to try to guess as to where the center of your image is. Okay, now this type I actually like quite a bit. We're going to go to Window and then down here to Character. What we're using is we're using Helvetica New Bold, and we have a few different variations. We can change this between like ultralight down here to light, and then even down here we'll get even stronger. There we go. And bold looks pretty good here. So if you are going to be using a couple different variations, it's good to use like maybe a light and then an ultralight in the same document. That way you have the same typeface, just a different variation. Okay, we're also choosing to have the caps on. There we go. Kind of gives it a nice clean look. And we're changing the spacing between our letters as well. by default, that's going to be on 0, which is going to give you a default space between your letters. I actually like increasing this, so we're going to type in 300 there and hit enter. Now, you don't want to increase like the width of the letters themselves. If you are going to need more space, make sure to do it right up here. We're going to hover right over there, and that says set the tracking. Okay, so tracking you do want to increase. Horizontally scale, let's take this back to 0 and then try to scale this horizontally by 300%. You can see what that does. It stretches the letters out and it's just a really big, awful mess. So please avoid doing that. Make sure to set your tracking instead of the horizontal spacing. All right, there we go. We're going to set that to 300. That looks great. Now, I'm actually going to duplicate this logo. We're just going to click and drag down to the new type. There we go, down to the new layer icon. Well, I'm going to hold down Shift and click and drag, and that's going to only allow me to go in variations of 90 degrees, so I can go to the right or left, up and down, and then at 45. So if I were to click here, it'll restrict me to a 45. So it's just a really easy way. I don't have to center this again, like create the black square and then recenter it, because it's already going to be centered. And my paragraph is set to center justify as well. So if I do type in something else, like featuring DJ Swizzle Sticks. That's my DJ nickname, if you didn't know. All right, so if we do something like that, you can see it's huge right now. So we're actually going to change this. 100-point font. Let's try 30 and hit enter. So there we go. We can see because it is centered on the paragraph, it's going to stay centered with our Phlearn logo and with the entire image. Okay, now let's talk about different variations. I'm going to change this from bold. Maybe we'll try medium, even go down to like a regular. So you can see it's the same font, it's just a little bit different weight. All right, that looks amazing and stupid at the same time. Perfect. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do, in case we want to be able to just have Phlearn stand off from the background a little bit more, let's double click here, and we're amazing and stupid at the same time. That's a new record for me. All right, so let's go to Phlearn. I'm going to click on this drop shadow, and we're going to add just a little bit of a drop shadow to it, and that's going to make it, it's going to basically put a little bit of shadow behind the letters. And there you can see it if I zoom in. Let's just turn this preview off and on. There we go, just to have them stand off a little bit more. Let's hit OK. And if I want the same exact drop shadow to be on my text down here, all I have to do is hold Alt or Option, click on this FX, and drag it over to the other layer. And it's going to copy the same layer effects to the other layer. And you can see there it is on the featuring as well. All right, there we go. That's our album cover. Let's go ahead and take a look at the progress. We started out with 3 images. We've got a portrait of a man, which we cut out from his background. We've got a hat, which we cut out of the background as well. Remember, we merged those together and then used that to create a layer mask for our background. Then we loaded that up into a couple different layers and used different blending modes to actually create these effects. And then when we were done with that, we placed type back over top of the image to get our final Phlearn album cover. Thanks so much for watching today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed learning how to create a Sam Smith album cover. Now go out, take a portrait of yourself or a friend of yours, make sure you're looking to the side, and put it on some really cool textures. If you love Photoshop and photography like I do and you want to learn more of it, just hit that subscribe button on your screen. We send free Photoshop and photography episodes every single week. And if you have an idea for a new episode or a question about today's episode or a comment or just in general you'd want to say hi and talk to me, I'm cool with that too. Leave it in a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, guys. We'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone. And today's gosh. Nope, didn't do it. Yo. Hey, how's it going? That was eventful. That'll make it into the bloopers. Go out and take a portrait of your friend or yourself looking up to the, to the side. Do that. I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you. I just want friends. Blah.